Hello, 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 everybody. All right, it is time for another Etch Live. This is for October 2025. If this is your first time here, essentially what we do is every single month we get on a live stream. We go over what's been going on this month in the world of Etch. And I've got Mateo here, who I will bring on for just a second to say hi. Maybe we should add him to the right since he's looking that way. Okay. So essentially, and I think let's just do a quick test, because if I go back to just my camera, I think you should still be able to hear Mateo. So Mateo, just do like a test real quick.
I think so. Can everybody hear me?
Okay. Can you guys hear Mateo when he's not actually on the screen? That's the question. Let us know in the chat. But what we do is we go over all of the latest features and developments in Etch. We answer questions. We do little demos. We make sure that if you've been trying to do something in Etch and you're stuck, that you can get support. You can get your questions answered. You can see it working in action on my screen. Okay, good. Everybody says yes. All right, good. So, I've been testing a bunch of different live streaming tools, and I keep coming back to Ecamm Pro every single time. And this is one of the only ones where we can actually stream in 4K. So that's one of the reasons. And we did a test last month. We got a lot of feedback. Hey, you can't read the screen. Got to be 4K. So we are back to Ecamm, and it should be good. All right. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna get started by talking about first Mark Zemansky's, I don't know if Mark's here or not, series that he's doing that I'm helping them with. Essentially, Christian Taylor is a content creator in this space, and he has the site, I believe it's Krahler.com. Let me bring up Krahler.com and let me screen share here. Okay. You may be familiar with Christian Taylor. And this is his old existing website that is currently being redone. Nick Arce is the designer for the new website, and I have been brought on to help with the development side, of course, in Etch. Now, one of the biggest, yes, I do mean the free labor series. Yes. That was a joke in the series. So look, one of the things that I get asked all the time is, will you do a full site build? Will you do a full site build? And I've done many of them in the inner circle, actually. I don't enjoy doing full site builds as trainings because, people do tend to fall off pretty quick. Like it's heavy. Like it's a lot. It's a lot of content, and it's a lot to keep up with, and there's a lot going on. And then we have to, if there's a timeline for a project, we have to wait until we can actually record to be able to work on the project. So there's often times where we could be getting work done, but we can't record, so we just don't do the work, right? And thankfully, this one's not on some crazy tight timeline or anything. So we're able to do it. And the whole point of doing it was to educate people on the entire process, right? So if you go watch the series, just go to YouTube, go to Mark Zemansky's site or Mark Zemansky's channel. I'll put a link to it in the description probably of this video. But the whole thing was to share the entire workflow. They go from planning out the architecture for this website to doing the design phase, and now we're in the development phase. This is literally you can see an entire project start to finish take shape. And that's really good. And we're doing some very unique and interesting stuff on the development side of things. It's 100% in Etch. You're going to see the components. You're going to see the loops. You're going to see the workflow. You're going to see all of it. And if that's something that interests you, you should absolutely head over there and check that out. Okay. There's Mark. He is here. Look at him. Look at him. He is here. Okay. So that was the first little announcement to get off of the list. Let's talk about some features, some things that happened in October. We took a lot of stuff that was previously behind feature flags. Now, if you don't know what a feature flag is, if you go to docs.etchwp.com and you click on feature flags down here, it talks about how feature flags work, their basic usage. Essentially, it allows us to take things that we are working on and hide them behind an opt-in where a user can say, yeah, I want to opt into that feature being active. And, because there's no settings panel in Etch right now where you could just go flip toggles and things like that. So this is how we currently do it. It helps on the development side of things. It helps with testing. If a feature is causing a problem, you can just turn it off. And this was like a whole list of them. And as we move through the alpha, beta, and into the RC and release phase, we took a lot of these and we essentially just baked them into core. Like they had been out in the wild for long enough. They had been thoroughly tested. They've performed really, really well. People like them. And so they're no longer behind flags. They are just core features now. And that's kind of how this process works. Next thing is full support for ACF, Metabox, and Jet Engine. And this includes now options pages. So if you are an ACF, a Metabox, or a Jet Engine user, you should have no issues. There may be a couple little things here and there that are like edge case stuff. If you just report those, we'll get them fixed up right away. But that is very, very, very powerful now. And ACPT, is that what it is, Matteo? ACPT? I think the developer of ACPT or APC, I don't know. These things have too many characters these days. I think they're working on an integration on their own that they plan on. I'm not sure if we've been in touch with them or how they're planning on handing that off or whatever, but or if we gave them access to something. I don't know. But they are working on an integration as well. So if you're an ACPT user, you should be able to work in Etch very soon also. And then, of course, what is the ultimate game plan? The ultimate long-term vision is that Etch actually does all of this stuff natively, of course. So all of the things that you can do in something like ACF or Metabox or Jet Engine, you will just be able to do natively inside of Etch. You won't need that third-party plugin or dependency. And Etch is going to do all of this using essentially core WordPress, right? It's not going to be a proprietary layer. We're going to register the custom post types the way you're supposed to and the custom fields and yada, 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 yada. It will all be nice and it will all be within Etch. Because the downside, right, of like an ACF or a Metabox integration is that you still have to leave Etch. So when it's time to make custom post types, when it's time to make custom fields and assign those things, you got to exit Etch and you got to go to the magic area of these various plugins and you have to go do work over there and then you have to return to Etch. And that's what we're trying to eliminate. And we've eliminated that in a lot of different ways. And people are already seeing how powerful it is to have a truly unified development environment where they don't have to bounce around constantly. It tremendously speeds up workflow, makes your workflow a lot more efficient, and the mental load is reduced significantly. I don't think people realize how taxing it is to have to leave and come back, leave and come back, leave and come back, leave and come back. And then the same thing is true. This is one of the problems with styling panels. It is very mentally taxing to have to go panel, 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 find an input, panel, panel, find an input. You can't work for very long like that because it's just, there's so much your brain is constantly hunting for. And people don't realize they don't calculate that mental cost. And that's no longer there either. And we'll talk more about, you're going to get a sneak peek at one of the features that we're working on to replace styling panels. As I talked about in a whole live stream about styling panels, there's multiple features that are going to be replacing style panels, not just one. It's not one replacement feature. It's a series of features that work together to the point where you no longer feel the need for styling panels. You get all the benefits, you get none of the downsides, because there are tremendous downsides to styling panels, and we want to eliminate those downsides. Okay, let's check on the chat real quick. And by the way, if you have a question, it needs to be #Q. If you want something demoed, it's #demo, #demo to request a demo. Matteo will keep an eye on the chat if anything looks, like something pertinent that we should discuss. Let me know.
There is a question already. If you want to tackle this,
sure.
They ask if we plan to support pods, which is essentially another ACF Metabox, etc., etc. I would say, I used to use pods a long time ago, and essentially ACF and Metabox kind of won. I don't know that it's as popular as you might think. But as with most things, if there is enough request and it makes sense to integrate, it's either going to be from our side or their side. But we're not against that.
Yeah. It really comes down to, how many people are chirping at us, like saying, hey, we really need this. If there's a lot of people who are stuck because an integration doesn't exist, then obviously that makes it take higher priority. To this moment in time, 1 year into development, this is literally the first feature request I've heard for pods. So that kind of goes to show you where the community is at with regards to what they're using and what they're wanting. And of course, I don't think the community wants us to pause development on other very important things to implement pods for one user, right? So we need an excuse to do it in the form of lots of people asking for it. Okay.
Apparently, Chris uses pods. I didn't know that.
Really? Look at this guy.
So maybe there might be some internal push.
Yeah, maybe y'all got a man on the inside, I guess. I don't know. That does tend to help. Okay, so we got full support for ACF MetaBox Jet Engine, including options pages. We also released the element. The element. This is a very meta element, but a very, very useful element. If you go to basic elements and click literally element, it's going to explain all about the element. I will just go ahead and show you what it is right now. It is primarily used for components. You can use it anywhere, but it's primarily used for components. Now, since it's primarily used for components, you're not going to see it in the normal elements bar because it doesn't really, if you know it exists, you can always just type it out of thin air, right? So you can come in and it's Etch element, boom. Okay, look, hello, I've just made an Etch element. And over here, okay, when I click on this element, you'll see that the attribute, it already has like a default attribute of tag. And that's really what this element is for. It's an element that can morph into any other element without physically altering its tag, right? This stays put, okay? I'll put a, let's put an element next to it, right? So if we had Etch element, and then we had an H1 right here, my heading or something. All right, let's take this and let's make this an H1. So you see we have two H1s here, essentially. One is done with the element, the other is done with an actual H1. So if I change this to H2, let me actually multi-cursor select that. So if I change that to an H2, it literally physically changed to an H2. Whereas this one, I can change to an H2. The tag is still Etch element. Now, what is the benefit of this? The benefit is that you can change the tag dynamically, which you could not do before. And this is very, very helpful in components. And that's why this is primarily a component-based feature. Even though it does work everywhere, you would primarily use it in components. So if I just add a div real quick and just call this like a card and go with a heading and text, we're just gonna make something simple. In fact, I'll call it a simple card so we don't have to use like a generic class. Simple card heading text, let's create BEM classes. Let's go ahead and create a component. So the whole purpose of this is if I'm using these cards in a grid in a section, like a normal section, that section's gonna have an H2. That's the section heading. So the cards, I'm screen sharing, right? I just got PTSD that I'm not screen sharing. Okay, I am screen sharing, good.
Yeah.
If I use these cards in a grid in a normal section, the section's gonna have an H2 heading. Well, what does this heading in the card need to be? It needs to be an H3. But what if I use the cards in a hero section where there's an H1, but there's no H2 yet? Semantically, the cards would need to be an H2. And previously there was no way to control the tag output. What you would have to do is like duplicate the heading, make one H1, make one an H2, use conditional logic to show or hide based on a prop and da-da-da-da-da. You don't have to do any of that anymore, right? So what you can do is you can convert this H2. Now you will see down here, we have this new, let me try to zoom in on it, add dynamic element, okay? So you have all your normal elements that have their normal tags, and then you have this element, which is the dynamic element. But like I said, you can You can just type it if you want to. I believe you can even just type it in here as well. And it will morph itself into the element, right? And then what you have this select box, but this isn't just a select box. It is a combo box, right? So that means it actually accepts anything, even dynamic data. And so if you made a selection over here and you said heading tag or heading level or heading whatever, this is completely up to you. We'll do heading level. And I just choose what I want the options to be. And actually H1 would never be an option in a card, okay? Because by definition, a card, there's gonna be more than one. And so H1 wouldn't even make sense. And so when you're building a component, you can actually tailor the precise correct options that should be available for the use of that component. In this case, it would be an H2 and an H3, right? So here's my my heading level, props.heading level. I can come in here and I can replace this and I can say props. Oh, hold on. There might be a little issue with typing. Oh, this is maybe a new issue with typing brackets. Okay, props dot, it would be like this once we fix this little bug. So you would have this in brackets and this would pass the heading level that they choose into here. That's like pretty new because I did this the other day just fine. Let me see. Yeah, it's definite. I can't type in there. Actually, can I? Yeah, that's the only way to do it. All right, so props dot heading, and this would need to be in brackets, of course, when we actually use that. And then this will simply pass when I use the component. If I think I can still exit here. Let's go. It's not going to work, but I can still exit here. You can see now that when I'm using the simple card component, I would literally just choose H1, H2, or H3, and that would control the output of that tag. No more conditional logic is needed. No more duplication of elements is needed. You just have a dynamic element, you pass a tag straight into it, and you move on with your life. That's basically how that works. And I'm sure we'll get that fixed up for tomorrow's release or today's release. Let's try to get it today, maybe. That'd be nice. Because we do have an alpha release coming later today. Okay, that is the element. Again, I would encourage you to go to the docs. Some people are coming into the community saying, hey, how does this thing work? They're not even remembering. We're putting a lot of time and effort into the docs. We actually have some people helping us with the docs as well who are putting a lot of time and effort into the docs. Check the docs first. Like you can see, this is fairly detailed on how this works, what it's for, some examples, etc. So this should be your first line of defense. And then if the docs are insufficient, come into the community and ask there. All right. Let's see. Can you specify a default? I think they're asking about the etch element. And so let me explain this real quick when I'm editing the component. So when you make a select box, the first option in the select dropdown is the default, essentially, okay? So whatever you want to be the default, put that on line 1. And then whenever you use the component, that's the one that's automatically selected first. And then, of course, you can select from there if you want to, but the first one in line will be the default. Okay, good. Let's see. Why isn't everything an element that is configured to be the correct tag? I don't see a downside. There is a downside. Like there is for sure a downside. You would not want to use it all the time, in my estimation, because look at this: heading, text, link, image. I just did all that work. Like that's very fast. I can just keep doing my work. Imagine that if I did element, etch element, and then I got to select every single one of them and go over here and choose what tag it's supposed to be. Tremendously slow, frustrating. I would even say infuriating workflow, right? It's really only for when you need to dynamically change the tag from outside of the element. Like, for example, in a component, because I can't touch that thing. Remember, if I make the change in the component, I'm making it for all instances of the component. So that doesn't work. That doesn't help. I need to be able to dynamically change it for this instance of the component. And that's what that is for. You would not want to just use that all the time and then constantly manually change the tag. Not to mention that when you are looking at code, okay, you're trying to look at your code. Did I put it? Let's see. Props.heading level. Okay, tag. Let's say that this was Okay, hold on. We gotta switch it back to the etch element. Okay. This is what you would essentially be looking at. Let me try to zoom in here. So, and you wouldn't even see div here, I don't think, if you were trying to use this everywhere. This is what you would see. And you would, even this paragraph. Let's try to get this paragraph done the same way. Okay. Etch. Like, this is unreadable. You literally, by looking at the code, have no idea what's going on. What is what? What's going on here? No idea, right? So you would not want to use this all the time. And that's kind of why we made it only show up when you're in component editing mode, because that's really the appropriate use of it. Okay, let's delete this thing. We don't need that anymore. Okay, let's refresh. I think okay, I'll just do that, save. There should be a native way to set the default, not just having the first item be the default, because then you lose the flexibility of making the default itself dynamic. I don't know that that's the case. I don't, because the default is not supposed to, I don't know what you mean by the default being dynamic, like the default being dynamic data. That's not really how you would pass in data. Like, because now we have to figure out where is the information coming from? Is it coming from an object? Is it coming from the user using the component? Yeah. So, and you're doing a select box because you don't want it to be dynamic, actually. Remember, this is the, when you're building the component, that combo box is for the developer developing the component. The user using the component is just in a simple select box. They're not in a combo box, and they're not going to pass dynamic data into it. If you needed to pass dynamic data from maybe Gutenberg or something, you could do that, but that wouldn't be a select box at that point. You would use like a text box, or you would use something that would allow you to pass a custom value. Okay.
There's a request for a demo. If you could demo how you make a header into a transparent header, that would be great.
Make a header into a transparent header?
Into a transparent header.
Okay. We could do that. I mean, do they mean an overlay header? Like it's got to be overlaid?
I think that's what they mean, yeah.
Transparent? Okay.
That's what it sounds.
Yeah, yeah. Just hard coding tag H2 should never be, yeah. I think that what I would encourage you to do, if you think it's, because somebody said like all of these could be Etch elements just pre-configured with their custom tag, but that doesn't solve the readability of the code problem that I just mentioned. And then there's really no reason to. It's a lot of extra parsing. It's a lot of extra processing. Yeah. It's a lot of extra just for no reason, because you don't need that. A static element is already transmutable in and of itself. If I need to change that to an H3, I can, right? But there's no reason for that to be done with just a basic, like this drop down right here, right? There's just no reason for it. So kind of already behaves the same. It's a very special element developed for a very special and specific purpose. There's just no value in making them all behave that way. What's up, Christian? Welcome to the stream. Okay, we will do demos in just a little bit. I'm going to get through the rest of the quick announcements here. Comparison modifiers are next. This is a big one. Came out in October. So I'm going to go to dynamic data. I'm going to go to modifiers, and then you're going to see it used to just be basic modifiers. If we take a look at those, like formatting dates and numbers to uppercase to lowercase to string to integer to slug, yada, yada, yada. There's a lot of these. You have a lot of ways to manipulate data. I also saw this coming down the pipe right here. Pluck is going to be brand new, probably later today. Allows you to extract a property from each object in an array and returns the values as a new array. That's fun. So we had all these basic modifiers. Now we have these comparison modifiers, which essentially allow you to do inline logic. Okay, so inline logic with your dynamic data. All right, so I would encourage you, once again, read this doc about comparison modifiers, and you can see an example of one happening here, where you have the product price is dynamic data you're pulling, like from a loop or something, and you need to do something like right here, we're manipulating the class output. And so we're saying if the product price is greater than 10, then it's going to get expensive. And if it's not, it's going to get affordable, right? So it's going to do this if it's true. It's going to do this if it's false. This is inline logic using greater, which is one of the available modifiers for comparisons, okay? And you can see the ones that are available here. Very, very, very powerful stuff. And inline logic was not possible before. You could not do class-based logic, like apply this class if this logic checks out, or apply this class if it doesn't. And now you can. So definitely go read up on those. We did a lot of bug fixes, a lot of stability enhancements, a lot of architectural enhancements throughout the releases in October. And now I want to give you a couple sneak peeks, and then we'll get to demos and Q&A and all of that stuff. Let's see. Yeah, let's get a final answer on this. Nick, how do you pronounce your last name? I always say Ars. I've heard some people say RC. Oh, look, Mark Szymanski says RC. Okay. Maybe Mark already asked him. There it is. It's RC. See? I am terrible with name pronunciations. The good news is I don't think Nick cares all that much, because, you know, he could have corrected me about 1 million times now, and he never has. So that means he probably doesn't care all that much. Sneak peeks. Let's pull up some Figma, okay? So I'm going to show you 2 sneak peeks. One that I am not at all excited about. I don't work this way, but I will show it to you because I know some of you are maybe excited about it, but it is a light mode of Etch coming as an option, okay? I will personally stay in dark mode. But we will have light mode as an option for those people who like to work in light mode. And as you can see, it is a very light mode. People who love light, you will hopefully love this because it is quite light. So yeah, I don't know. How about we just check in the chat? I mean, how many of you are dark mode? How many of you are light mode? Just put in your votes in the chat. Let's just get a little feedback. You know, a few people have requested it, okay? Yeah, you know, that light mode does get a lot of hate. It does get a lot of hate.
Yeah, I'm seeing mostly burn my eyes.
Yeah. But there are some people, who like it, who, you know, I don't know what's wrong with them, but they, you know, it's just personal preference, I guess. Dark mode, okay, somebody asked. Dark mode will be the default. Don't worry. Have no fear. I am not a light mode kind of guy. So dark mode will be the default. Yeah, I mean, it's
dark mode by a landslide.
Yeah, by a landslide.
Like it's not even close.
Okay, I told you.
Plus a hot pink one.
You wouldn't be as excited about that. Yeah, somebody did do a hot pink. Okay, let's look at the one everybody is maybe actually excited about. So Justin says, 1 sec, I'm gonna go stare into the sun to lessen the brightness. All right, so we did a whole stream, as I said, about getting rid of style panels. A lot of people are very excited about the prospects of getting rid of style panels. A lot of people are rightfully terrified of getting rid of style panels. And I did my best to explain the tremendous downsides that are inherent in style panels. And I also tried to make the point as best I could that we're not just getting rid of style panels. There are plans for replacements. There are plans for engineering and innovation, right? It's like this, to just sum it up really quickly, this concept of styling panels is a solution to a few problems that have been around for a very long time. This solution was architected in like 2009, 10, 8, 11, I don't know, somewhere around there, okay? Now, just because it's an old solution doesn't mean it's a bad solution. Classes have been around since the 1990s. They're a fantastic solution, as you know, right? So it's not just about their age, but I think it does speak to the fact that things have come a long way since then, all right? Things have come a long way since then, and they have always had a lot of downsides. That's the thing. And nobody to this point has ever stepped in to say, maybe we should re-innovate that area. Given so many downsides, maybe we should take another look at it, right? If you ask what are the downsides of classes, there's not a lot. There's not a lot, especially if you use BIM to organize them and you have auto BIM to create them instantly. There's not many downsides. So you look at a concept like classes and you go, I don't think that needs to be re-innovated. Like, they work really, really, really well. They do exactly what they're supposed to do. We understand this concept of specificity. They're very, very useful. Okay, so we look at that objectively and say, we probably don't need to re-innovate that. But we look at something like style panels and we go, man, there is objectively a lot of downsides. It's probably an area where we should take a fresh look. And what I said was, we're not going to replace it with one replacement feature. It's going to be a series of features. So what I'm about to show you is not the feature to replace it. Keep that in mind. This context is very important because people will see this and do a one-to-one comparison perhaps and be like, style panels versus this. That's not what we're doing, okay? It's style panels versus a set of features of which you are about to look at one of them, okay? Just make sure that we're all on the same page there. I love sharing screen with team. They all hate me. Okay, so I want transparent mode where I can't see anything and it all just works. I don't know that one's achievable. I don't know that one's achievable. Okay, so let's take a look at what we're calling the mini GUI, okay? The mini GUI. So the mini GUI, and let's just talk about some of the problems we're trying to solve. Okay, one objective problem is I don't want to type all the time. I don't want to type so much, right? If I have to type, and I've said this repeatedly, if I have to type display flex direction column, one more time, okay, somebody's getting hurt. One more time, somebody's getting hurt, okay? I don't want to do that. That cannot be the workflow, right? We acknowledge that. Yeah, that should not be your workflow. You should not be stuck typing that all the time. There's another problem of I may not know how to type those things right off the bat where if I could see a visual indication of what I'm about, like what I need done, like if I see an indicator that I can click a button and it's going to make a column layout, like stack content, right? I can click that button and it writes the CSS for me. Now, it would be great if I could see that CSS being written because at the same time, I could be learning. I could be like, yes, I want a column layout. Let me click that button and then it writes it and I go, oh, okay, that makes sense. And I learn. And then I can also go, I could start writing that if I needed to, you know, but I don't need to because I got this nice little convenient icon here, right? Or a linear gradient, perhaps. I want to, you know, I know the basics of CSS, but I can't remember that stupid linear gradient syntax. What is it? And I don't want to look it up. I don't want to ask AI. I would just like to click a button and it would just throw in the linear gradient function for me. I could swap my values. I could move on with my life. That would be fantastic, right? And there are other features that are going to come into play with this. The other thing that we wanted to do, that I wanted to do specifically, if you think about style panels, you have style panels and you have your CSS box. They're in two separate places. And what we had was bidirectional authoring to where you put in a value in the style panels, you see the CSS getting written over here, but they're in two different places. Your eyes are constantly going back and forth and back and forth. And you could hide one and so one might not even be available to you at the time. There's a lot of different scenarios where it's just it's not fantastic. It's not fantastic because we were going off of the old solution of like, well, I mean, any builder's got to have styling panel. Actually, it doesn't. Okay. So here's the mini GUI that we are planning. Okay, I'm going to come in here and we're going to take a look. So what you would see right off the bat, this is your CSS editor right here that you are used to seeing. And you would see this little toggle down here called CSS Quick Actions. And if you toggled that on, you would see something like this. And as you can see here is row and column and grid. And then you have your alignment options. And then you have margin and padding. And this is very, very quick of click, 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 and it's just writing CSS for you. Just boom, 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 right? And then you throw in your values and you're good to go. And some of these are obviously predetermined values, like this is going to put in center. This is going to put in like, and depending on the axis you choose, like this would put in justify content to the center or something, right? This would put in padding, margin, and then you would throw in values for those. They would have some sort of default value. You would throw in whatever value you want. But this would write the CSS for you very, very quickly, and it's all happening in one place. Okay, so you're not going back and forth between two different panels. You're in the panel. This is the panel where the code exists, and this just helps you write it and helps you move a lot faster, okay? This, by the way, would be contextual. This is a very important point. This is because notice there's not categories, there's not tabs, there's not anything to navigate through. Why? They're going to be contextual to the element chosen. So for example, this would be for any sort of box. Any sort of box, like, just think of a div, a flex div, a container, a section, or whatever. This would be for a box. If you happen to choose, right, and here's an example of like what a tooltip might show you. Like it's going to show you what's about to be written, okay? Let me scoot over here just a little bit. Okay, so if you chose a text element, like a heading or paragraph or something, you would get contextually appropriate options for that element. It's not going to keep giving you the like, do you want to flex align this? No, it's text. I want to do text things to it, right? And so if you want to text align left, text align center, text align right, whatever, underline, italicize, capitalize, change font sizes, whatever, you can do that here. If you were doing an image, it would give you things that normally happen to images, right? So these are quick actions. This is one of a set of features, not the replacement feature, one of a set of features that will eventually fully replace styling panels, okay? Okay, so let's take a look real quick at the chat. Okay, seems to be pretty good feedback there, Mateo, yeah?
Yeah. Everybody's loving this.
Okay, good. Yeah, I like it. Okay. So now combine this with the concept of recipes. Combine this with the concept of mix-ins. Combine this with the concept of actually intelligent autocomplete and auto-suggest. Combine this with the concept of what we call GUI in code, which is very much like this, for example. Okay, let's say I selected this H2 and I go to the computed style, right? And it's harder to do on swatches. Let's go here. There you go. So see how can I zoom? Why can't I zoom? I hate how, okay, let's just try that. Look right here at this swatch. See, this is essentially code, right? This little box is not part of the code. This is what we would call like GUI in code, okay? It's a graphical user interface that's been injected straight into the code. And if you click on it, you can interact with it, right? So this is another layer of the features that we would be implementing in Etch, to where if you put a color, it would give you a little swatch and the swatch would be interactable. We don't need a whole styling panel for that. We can interact with certain aspects in a GUI form, but still in the code editor where everything lives in the exact same place. And now there's no need to do any bidirectional sync nonsense. We're literally, the icons are right in the code for you. There's GUI in the code, so you're manipulating the code with a graphical user interface, or you're just writing code around these things. And it's all one panel. It's all one panel. It's nice and seamless. It's very quick. There's no context switching. Yeah, this is just an idea, a taste of a lot of what we're planning. And what you end up with is you don't have any of the downsides that styling panels bring that I've talked about at length. But you still get your work done very, very fast, very efficient. And even if you don't know what you're doing, these give you starting points and you can learn from what happens when you click the buttons. Okay. Oh, see, okay. I'm glad. I'm glad we got the dots are connecting for people. Okay. There we go. Hey, this happened a long time ago. Fido, this happened a long time ago. Okay. Um, a bit more similar to the ACSS, right? Yeah, there. Oh, yeah. I didn't even mention that. Of course, context menus are coming as well. So there's going to be context menus in the mix. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be fantastic. Where do you extract context from classes from its name? I don't know what that's a question for, but I will say if you're asking questions, make sure #Q or they are going to get lost. There's no mini GUI in the ultra light mode yet. Plus, I don't want people to quit the stream. I can't show anything in light mode anymore based on today's feedback. So light mode is we're gonna put that away for a while. See, I knew there was gonna be one. Light can be pretty nice. Using Claude and Light lately, and I like it much better. Okay. All right. It looks like the feedback is pretty good. All right. So let's go ahead and Mateo will do questions. We'll do any demo stuff that people want to do. I'll let you determine what gets asked and what gets demoed.
Yeah, we can start with a question regarding the CSS quick actions. They ask for an ETA. I don't know that we have one though.
No, it is part of the alpha beta RC phase because that's what style panels were going to be part of. So there's the chunk of time, resources, whatever is set aside for that. So I would imagine that we're working on one other big major kind of architectural thing right now. And I would say probably when that starts to get more stabilized, wrapped up, we could take a look at starting on the quick actions.
Yeah, probably. We're still in a phase where we're working a lot on stability and general cleanup. Before we start adding more features, we want to make sure that the system stabilizes.
Yeah.
All right. So let's look at some other questions. I have a few saved. There were still a few questions about the element. I don't know. Do you want to go back to that?
Yeah, we can. I mean, if anybody's confused.
So there was a question. Can you use the element for colors, like choosing from a palette?
Can you use the element for colors? I don't know what that would mean because the element is HTML and colors are CSS. So I don't know what that would be for. Yeah,
I've been trying to figure out what that question exactly meant, but I too struggle a little bit. So if the person asking is still in chat and you want to give us more context, that would be great. Then let me see.
Someone did ask about existing frames. You cannot use existing frames in Etch, but you should be aware of patterns.etchwp.com. And you can browse patterns. And I just created this one the other day, this nice little greeter component. It is going to tell you, by the way, what is a component. So this has that's the component symbol, right? If it's just a pattern, like if I go to a hero section, for example, it's going to have the pattern symbol. So these are patterns that are available. There's a little responsive handle on the side, so you can see how these work are fully responsive. This was all built. I built all this with Etch, by the way. So if you're wondering, how far do the capabilities actually go? I mean, pretty much you just do whatever you need to do now. See a lot of things online like, I don't know, I just don't know if Etch is capable enough for building a real site. Well, I don't know. Go watch the Mark Szymanski build. Go watch, go look at things like this. I mean, it's actually has more than the tools that have been around for years and years and years and years. Not to mention that it's faster and it does it better. So yeah, but you should be aware of these, right? And by the way, there could be some little quirks because it's a lot to keep track of, but they are built to be framework agnostic. Okay. So if I copy the code, if I don't have automatic CSS, they will still function. They will still work. They will not break. Right. But typically to use it, you would use the copy function. And then I don't even know what version I'm on here, but there you go. So I just pasted this in. Now this is a dark site. This is a light section. So obviously I would have to make some adjustments here to my text. Probably what I would do is just change this to BG Ultra Dark, right? And there you go. So we're good to go. let me show you maybe an example. That's actually an example of one that needs to be fixed right there, because I don't think I had a fallback. But what you're going to notice is if you look right here, so I put in a gap and I said, yeah, we want this to be based on content gap and I want double the content gap. But if you're not using content gap, like you're not an ACSS user, it'll just take 1M as the content gap. So you'll still have a gap. It just won't be tokenized. And then if you installed ACSS, everything would start working according to your ACSS stuff. So it's essentially framework agnostic. Here's another one I gotta check right here. So I'm also trying to do the grid variables less. You'll probably see things like this, like repeat to, min, max, yada yada yada. Just because doing grid to and then repeat to and min, max, it gets to be quite a lot. So I just started replacing these and not using the tokens. But if you run into scenarios where some of these patterns that you paste in are not like there's like an aspect of it doesn't have a fallback, just let me know and I'll just go put the fallback in. Like I said, it's a lot to keep track of putting a fallback into every single token that you use. It's quite annoying, but we're doing that to make it framework agnostic for people. Yes, that would multiply the 1M by 2 as well. That's correct.
Right. So there's a few more questions about the CSS, the mini guy, but essentially, like there's been a bunch of comments about will things like ACSS classes be available as sort of like a command handler or context menu. I think the answer is yes. We're looking at like how to integrate context menus and recipes and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you already have. So if I wanted, like, you already have auto suggest, auto complete, right? We still gotta make some adjustments to these things, but there's already that already exists, right? But you would probably imagine, you have to use your imagination because it doesn't actually work. Imagine a little swatch right here. And if I clicked it, I would get a normal swatch interactive, thing. But what if I right-clicked it? I would get a context menu with all the automatic CSS color variables and whatnot. Plus, context menus. Let's talk about this for just a second. Context menus are not a framework feature. They are in ACSS, but they shouldn't be. They are a feature in ACSS because no other builder had the foresight to add them as a builder feature. They should be a builder feature. A proper builder should have a framework API to where a framework like automatic CSS can say, here's our classes, here's our variables, here's the categories they belong in, and then the context menu that is a feature of the builder interface should parse all of that into its context menus as options, right? And if you look at something like our style manager where you go to variables, you can manage your variables. I can't find it right now. I could go to the Figma for it. There's a whole Figma designed for categorizing these so that this isn't actually just a root. Like, this is just to make this work right now. But there's a version of this that is a full UI where you can categorize your variables. And then when you categorize them, that's how they're going to be organized in context menus. And it's not just for ACSS. It can literally be for any framework or even you building your own framework. And therefore, you building your own framework or importing a framework would also have the benefit of right-click context menus for using that framework. You see what I'm saying? That should be a builder feature that is agnostic and API-driven so that any framework can integrate with it and every user can have the same exact workflow, essentially, and get all of the benefits of that kind of workflow. That's what we're going to be building. And see, like, there's very few, like, nobody thinking about this and doing it and putting in that level of effort. I could show the Figma concept, but I honestly, look, I will show you, like, this is just Tommy's sandbox right here. Then there's Jeremy's sandbox. I'm just going to show you zoomed out versions. I don't know where it is. And I don't want to spend 15 minutes like searching for it, right? Jeremy's sandbox has 3 different pages of sandboxes. Okay, so like I don't know where it is, and I don't want to waste 20 minutes hunting it down. So, but it is there. Okay, let's see. What else we got, Matteo? What else we got?
Right. There was a couple of comments about extending Etch so that it can support JS frameworks. I know that Chris already answered, but yeah, essentially, I know that we've experimented with like trying to use Svelte inside of Etch, and we got somewhere with that. So it's technically not impossible, but as Chris said, there is some stuff that needs to happen on the HTML parser to support that, and it's not necessarily a priority in that. That would be a really nice to have, but right now we have bigger fish to fry.
Yes. Okay.
There was another comment about the mini guy saying it would be cool to have like a modifier key plus the up and down arrows to change the numbers, sort of like it happens in DevTools. I think we have in ACSS. It would probably not be terribly difficult to add to Etch as well.
Yeah, the only difference is that's done in like a number input in ACSS, and I don't know if it's how it would be done in like raw code, but I mean, maybe Chris or Ryan.
Yeah, that might be an added layer of difficulty. Like you'd have to be, but obviously
clearly
you have
already
to be aware of like what's underneath the cursor.
Yeah, because it already conflicts with moving your cursor, right? Like
yeah. Well, with modifier keys.
Yeah, that's possible for sure.
But yeah, it might be something that we look at. Right. So other questions. Somebody asked for more info about the block editor refactor. I don't know how far we can go in giving more info just yet.
Yeah, we'll give more info soon.
Let's just say we believe that we have found a better way to implement our Gutenberg layer. And it will. Yeah.
Go ahead.
And we're still in the somewhat experimental phase, as in we're transitioning our first element, and that is giving us information about like what are potential blind spots, what are potential unknowns, et cetera, et cetera. And we're transitioning possibly the most complex element first, I think. So we may have more information going forward. If things go according to plan, if this really turns out to be what we think it is going to be big because it will have implications outside of Etch. But I think that's as far as we can go.
Yeah, it when we say it could be big, we're talking about like change the entire WordPress ecosystem kind of big. So keep that in mind. I did tease that at the very, 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 very end of a very long live stream the other day. So I don't know how many people were still around when I teased it, but a few people were. Okay, so let's see. Somebody asked about light dark implementation on their actual website. We cannot do I would be like, I need to do a full tutorial on how to do all of that. There's JavaScript involved. There's a switch component involved that you would have to build, or we would have to build one for you and give you one. And all of that stuff is in the pipeline, by the way. Like there will be a switch component. There will be a pre-made dark mode, light mode component. But one thing that I would encourage you to start playing around with, and this was actually on my implementation of this new little greeter component. Let's see if I can throw this thing into the page and show you what I mean. And I'll show you how it was built if this works. There you go. Look at that. Look at this. Okay. But check this out. You can choose the scheme, right? With this little selector as part of this component. But that's not really like, you could always do that with data attributes and such. It's really how I did that I'm going to show you, and I would encourage you. This is, and I think what I'm going to do, because a lot of people have asked for a CSS course, and I'm just telling you guys, if I have to do a basic CS, like I will just not be here anymore. Like there's nothing I would rather do less. Okay. But what I am going to do is probably an accelerator, like a 6-week accelerator, mid-size group amount of people for advanced modern CSS. Okay. And so you would want to know the basics already. You would want to at least be just comfortable, right? And then we would literally go through all of the like highly advanced techniques, cutting edge stuff to really just accelerate you up to like take you, 3, 4, 5 notches up, right? And there would be like quizzes, there would be like, we would do a mix of live stuff, a mix of training stuff, whatever. But check this out. And I'm just gonna show you this and I want you to go explore it on your own, okay? So I'm gonna edit this component. I'm gonna open the greeter. Okay, if we look at how it's constructed on a component level, this is not the part I wanted to show you, but I will just go through it real quick. So there's a button, there's the avatar. The avatar is inside of the button. The button does have an ARIA label on it, by the way. This is all accessible, right? ARIA expanded false, ARIA label is open the greeter, okay? We have the avatar, which is selectable. Then we have a content wrapper, and it's literally just a slot, which is the use of this. This is how slots work, by the way, for people confused about slots. This is a component, right? A closed component. I am not editing the component right now. I am able to put whatever I want inside of this greeter, okay? There's no limitations to what I can put inside of the greeter because it is essentially powered by a slot, and a slot is a free drop zone where the user can put anything they want to put. So there's not even like, notice there's no props for this. There's no props for this because it doesn't actually exist in the component. It's just things I'm injecting into the component via the slot, okay? So it's very, very, very flexible in terms of a component. But now I want you to see how the dark mode, light mode was integrated. So I'm gonna come down here and we're gonna see that I created some variables for the styling, light, background, light foreground, light border, dark background, dark foreground, dark border, okay? And then there's this new line right here called color scheme, where I set a scheme via a token. And you can see that this token is actually not defined up here. The fallback for the token is light, which should actually be light dark like that. That should be the fallback, okay? And with this as the fallback, or this as the default essentially, this would respond automatically out of the box, no switches, no nothing, with just user preference. So user comes here, they would see a light greeter if they prefer light, they would see a dark greeter if they prefer dark. Then what I did, okay, if you're looking about styling things, so you go down to things that need to be styled, such as the content wrapper, and I'm using the new light dark function in CSS, which essentially when I'm defining the background property, I can define here's what it should be for light, here's what it should be for dark. Then I define the text color, the foreground, right? Here's what it should be for light, here's what it should be for dark. And then when you come down to the border, here's what it should be for light, here's what it should be for dark. Now, if you go to CSS color scheme, here's one, like, you just gotta know this because this is so freaking fantastic, okay? You're gonna go down and try to figure out how to implement this color scheme. And they give you examples like this, right? So at the root level, people always think about my entire website needs to do this, right? But this is not the only use case of this. If you go down here to opt in specific elements, right? You can define this anywhere, right? Okay. And it can be tokenized. And so what I did is I defined it. Oops, I didn't mean to zoom in there. I defined it at the greeter level right here. And then what I did is I created a prop over here called light or dark. And I could actually do an auto. Okay, so auto, and this would be light dark as the value. And then what this does is this injects the scheme via this token into an inline style, right? So I'm setting the scheme right here based on this switch, and it's responding to this color scheme right here, which then goes and uses those light dark functions. And essentially, without JavaScript, right? Because we're just using a select prop, I made a switch for the user to be able to come in and say, I want the light version, or I want the dark version, or maybe we just go auto and whatever the user preference is, that's what they're going to see, okay? And of course you could do this kind of stuff to your entire site, but being able to do this on the component level is amazing. And this new light dark function that goes inline, so you're not having to say, here's my dark colors, here's my light colors, and then they all try to auto switch and you got to keep track of everything that's going on. No, you can do it very granularly now with this light dark function, and it is absolutely, it's like, it's a breath of fresh air. It's a really, really, really awesome way to handle dark mode, light mode. Okay.
All right. I have a bunch of questions lined up.
Yeah.
Right. So one, going back to the Gutenberg, what about auto blocks in Gutenberg? Is it on hold? Will it come over time? It will come. It's tied with the Gutenberg layer refactoring that we were talking about, that we can't really yet say too much about. But it will come, and if our plan works as we expect, you will really have you will really see parity between what you have in Gutenberg and what you have on the front end, and what you have in Etch. Next, is an AI agent mode coming to Etch soon? Well, we have tested internally a little bit of an experiment with building an AI agent. The preliminary results were extremely promising. We did put it on hold to still work on the stability refactor and everything else, but it's a really interesting experiment that I think we'll be able to integrate fairly soon. That was related to AI. An agentic browser would already be able to help you with things in Etch using AI, correct? I personally tried, I think it was with Comet, and I did get some mixed results. It wasn't terrible, but it also wasn't super fantastic. I don't know, you, Kevin, did you like perhaps play with Dia and try to get it to do stuff inside of Etch?
It can do certain things. Yeah, it can do certain things.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've talked. There's a lot of AI browsers. I've talked to some people behind the scenes. I'll just let everybody know, like, there is a lot of security concern with AI browsers. A lot of people may start shunning the browser AI concept because of like, dude, I don't want AI like tracking literally everything I do on the web and like literally knowing everything that I'm doing and thinking and what typing in. And that's kind of what's happening. I think all that data is being piped back. And so people are getting very, very wary of that. And they may go like, they have no problem with AI agents in the tools they use, but in terms of at the browser layer, there's starting to be some pushback, at least from what I've been seeing. So I just don't know. But yeah. I think the other people I've talked to have essentially said AI that's built for the actual interface that you're trying to use is always going to be better than a browser trying to interact with a random interface, you know?
Yeah, that's for sure. Like a proper AI implementation with an agentic, with an AI agent inside of Etch is going to be much better than relying on a browser. There's also a lot of security concerns when it comes to like problem injections. So imagine like you're editing a website built with Etch, but it accepts comments from people. People could comment stuff that injects prompts into your AI browser. That's not ideal. I would be very wary of using an AI browser to edit a website that also has external content coming in. Yeah. Then there was a couple of questions about multilingual. So will Etch eventually have its own native multilingualism because WPML is too overloaded? I don't know that we'll venture into building our own multilingual platform.
If we did, that's kind of one of the things that would probably have to be an add-on. Because one, not everybody needs it. And two, it's extremely involved, right? So it would have to be an add-on.
I think as we approach, like as we get closer, as we get past 1.0, so we have stability, we have somewhat a complete feature set for 1.0. We feel like we have the features that we need. And perhaps we've looked at some of the things that we didn't consider necessarily were going to be a part of 1.0, but as we keep going, they become more and more necessary. And we will approach multilingual, and we will approach things like e-commerce, which we thought were going to be for like a year or two. We will take a look at what's the we'll take an 80-20 approach to this. What's the easiest way to get multilingual to the most people? And it's probably going to be by using a plugin. And there's free plugins as well that already do a good job. One other comment related to that was Polylang works very well in Etch. The only missing thing is the automated language switcher. That's something that we could look at. Like if the 20% effort from our part is to, add these little things that the plugin can't do automatically, and then you get multilingual websites, that's probably going to be the approach that we're going to take instead of like trying to build a fully fledged multilingual plugin.
Yeah, I mean, look at ACF and Jet. It was way faster and easier to integrate Jet Engine and ACF and Metabox than it was to completely flesh out the replacement for those. So you do the easy thing first that gets people to the finish line for people that use those that want to use that kind of integration, and then you work on the full native solution later.
Yeah. I think that's gonna be the way to go. Let's see what other questions are there.
Justin says, I need a switcher or tabs element to toggle between some content. How involved does it scale of 1 to 10? So I will show you. It depends on what you mean. Tabs and a switcher are two different. Well, they can be two different things. You could probably argue that most switchers should probably just be two tabs. So if you go to etchwp.com/pricing, okay, this right here is a switcher. It's really just two tabs. I believe that Grok made that for me in, it was about 8 minutes of prompting and pasting and then doing some styling, right? So yeah, it depends on how, just to be honest with you, I think we all know this about AI, it depends on how good you are at prompting. Right? If you give it a shitty prompt, you're going to go down this like rabbit hole of shitty output, and you could be there for 2 hours, right? If you're really good at prompting, it could take you 8 minutes. Okay, this took me like 8 minutes. So that is kind of dependent on the person using the keyboard, right? But if you're good at prompting, then it's not much work at all. And then we can see like, this is my keyboard navigating it and such, you definitely want to make sure you tell it, hey, needs to meet all accessibility requirements. It's best if you give it I think with this one, I actually gave it documentation for an accessible tabs component. And I was like, read this over. This is how I want my tabs to work. And I want you to use BEM, and I want you to blah, 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 blah. Give it the whole list of requirements. And then it was like, okay, spit it right back out. And it was essentially usable straight out of the gate. So let's see.
All right. I have a couple of more. So when will the third-party API be available to developers so they can build tools on Etch? I think we're going to relook at that once the stabilizing part is done. Because we still, we're trying to avoid as best as possible to introduce breaking changes. And an API is one of the areas where you might introduce breaking changes. But at the same time, sometimes it's kind of like the best thing to do to introduce a breaking change. And so we're trying to maintain this balance, and it feels like it's best to finish stabilizing the system and then think about how to give external third-party developers access to the system through the APIs than it is to tack them on right now. So that's probably going to be... It might not be too long from now, but it's not the immediate thing that we're working on.
Doing a video demonstration one day soon on how to take one frame Hero Barcelona. Yeah. Yeah. Could do that. Could do that. This would be an example, by the way, of, so, patterns.etchwp.com is obviously free. And there will probably eventually be pro patterns. This would be like an example of a pro pattern versus what you might see there currently, which are obviously like free patterns or more basic, right? Somebody was asking that question the other day. This would be a good example. Okay.
Right. And by the way, Waji added that he's already experimented with the components API.
Okay, good.
So yeah, Waji is often ahead in that. He's really like our internal researcher. He's always like trying to figure out what the next steps that might be coming up. So unsurprisingly, he's already working on stuff like that. Yeah.
I'm going through them as well. Let's see. In Etch website, I saw you have some lines going through the page. That's cool. Could you show how it's done briefly? Yeah, that's should be pretty easy. I think what he means is these accent lines right here. And then there's these accent lines here as well. These, if you notice, are, I think what I did here, they're a pseudo element. I believe I have to log in because they're done in ACSS. Let me log in real quick. Yeah. Can't type today. All right, let's go. Button effect, links. I might have moved it, actually. I remember moving. No, here I think it is. Okay, so it's this before and after pseudo element. And if you notice, the width is, I actually liked how I engineered this. I created a box that's content width plus the gutter. And then I added a border inline essentially to the left. And so it's a transparent box that just floats back there, and it's got a border on both sides. And then the box is content width plus gutter to make sure it never overflows. So yeah, that's pretty much what I did there. And I just put two of them, and that's why they're doubled. And the other one was content width plus gutter times 3. And then I think I just get rid of it on mobile or something. Yeah. If you ever need, like, one thing I thought about doing was you create like one line as a before and the other line as an after. It's way more of a pain in the ass. Keep in mind that, like, you're positioning a pseudo element. So if you need something on both sides, just think of it as a big box, and then you can use border. So that gives you can do 2 different lines with one pseudo element instead of needing 2 pseudo elements for 2 lines. And it's just way more efficient to manage that way. I think some people forget that sometimes. Like this line right here, where it's a notch at the top and a notch at the bottom, that's a line and then a box, and then it has a border at the top and the bottom. So you can essentially do 1, 2, 3 shapes with only 2 pseudo elements. Okay.
All right. There's a bunch of questions about frames and when will frames be available, or are we working on it? Well, the short answer is that we are already working on the dynamic components. Because we don't have yet the API to add external elements into Etch, we are making those as components directly. But eventually, the dynamic elements will be elements in their own. The patterns, I think they will come a little later when we have a little bit more of the dynamic elements and stuff. But, well, no, that's not completely true. You're already working on some
We're
patterns.
already working on the patterns, yeah. I mean, that's what patterns.etchwp.com
Yeah, patterns.etchwp.com.
The frames may not be called frames in Etch, right? It may be that you take your frames license and that unlocks the Etch Pro patterns, right? Because there's going to be, we want to have free ones that are just for anybody who comes into the Etch ecosystem. They're like, hey, I need to get started. I want to do some basic stuff. I want to see how stuff works. Okay, they can throw some free patterns in there. But then the pro patterns are behind a paywall, and then you would be able to use essentially your frames license to just unlock those. But the ones that I've built so far are from the frames library, right? These are from frames. They're just more of the basic ones, right? And then we would lock the pro ones away behind a license key. All right.
Another question was, after releasing 1.0 final, will you maintain weekly intervals for subsequent Etch releases? I can tell you that our philosophy is release soon and release often. So we're most likely going to maintain a very rigid schedule, particularly because it's not like you say 1.0.0 final, but even 1.0.0 isn't final. Like in software, nothing is really final. It's going to be just one version in many versions. It has a different meaning because 1.0.0 in people's minds usually represents this is feature complete and stable. And we're taking it sort of that way because that's usually what people expect. But the reality is 1.0.0 is just one version. And after that, there's going to be 1.0.1 and 1.0.2 and et cetera, et cetera. We will keep releasing on a very tight schedule. But most importantly, we will keep releasing what's available as soon as it's available rather than have you wait. And that's the deeper philosophy behind our release schedule. It's not we release every Thursday. It's we release every time there's something valuable to give you guys. And to the very minimum that will happen every Thursday. And if we can't have anything valuable before Thursday, then we're going to ask ourselves, why didn't we have anything valuable to release? Maybe we're working on things that were too big and we didn't break them down enough so that we could have a little increment that was ready on Thursday. But yeah, essentially to answer the question, yeah, we're going to keep maintaining a release schedule very similar to the one we had so far.
Toby said, I'm cool with dealing with code, but I struggle with the idea of teaching Etch because people will ask me why learn some Etch-specific code semantics instead of just learning PHP. I don't know what you mean exactly by Etch-specific code semantics. Most of what we do tracks very, very, very closely with how things are done in JavaScript or PHP. But as far as PHP goes, you're going to be able to author PHP. So if you could do something with, like I showed you with like inline logic modifiers, you might say that that's a Etch specific syntax, even though it's very, very close to how logic is done in JavaScript, right? But if you wanted to, if you're like, hey, your loop thing, so there are, I mean, maybe you're like, what are you, it's hard to, without specifics, like what are you specifically talking about? The dynamic data tags, how those are syntaxed, right? And you're like, well, what if I just want to create a loop myself in PHP? Well, you'll be able to. Like you'll be able to author PHP. I think most people would choose not to do that unless they're, pasting code from somewhere or whatnot, or they're doing something very, very, very specific. But if the builder has loop functionality that is extremely quick to whip up a loop and get it working, why would you write all of that by hand in PHP? I don't know. But you could if you wanted to. We just don't have PHP authoring yet. It's waiting on 1.0 stable before we get into that territory, but you will be able to. So if you want to teach PHP authoring in Etch, you will 100% be able to teach PHP authoring in Etch. If you want to teach vanilla JavaScript authoring in Etch, you can do that in Etch right now. You could put in a section, you can turn on the JavaScript editor, and you can literally write vanilla JavaScript right here and teach that if that's how you wanted to teach it, right? So the fact that Etch shortcuts a bunch of things like loops and conditional logic and so on and so forth, that's just a benefit. It's just a bonus. Could you do it without that? Yeah, you'll be able to do it without that if you really, really wanted to. I don't know anybody in their right mind who would, but it's possible.
Yeah, and like it was already said in chat by Chris Reinhardt Waji, the more advanced things that aren't pure HTML, CSS, JavaScript, PHP, they're heavily inspired by Svelte, and this also answers a question that was just asked about, like, what template language do you use in Etch? Well, I mean, it's an entire JS framework, but it's Svelte. So to some extent, like, do you consider Svelte a standard? Perhaps not. Like, it's not a standard like HTML and CSS is, but it's also like a very well-known JavaScript library. So and for those things, there isn't really a way to do it in a standard way because there is no standard. Svelte does it that way. Vue does it another way. React does it another way. It is one way, but it is limited to the loops and conditions, the parts that don't have a native HTML and CSS way, or JavaScript or PHP if you're trying to do it like dynamically.
Yeah. Let's see. Possible to get one day a demo without ACSS. Now it's a bit nightmare to set all when V1 comes out as a non-ACSS user can use with any constant. Not really sure what this means. You can use Etch without a framework, 1000%. I've tried to make the point before. I mean, I would go, here's the, now I used a very aggressive headline for this, okay? But you should read the content and the arguments of the article and understand exactly the point that's being made. Let me see if I can find it real quick. It's called "A CSS Framework is Required for Maintainable Web Design." Now, a lot of people read that title and they were like, he's just trying to sell automatic CSS, all he's doing. And I didn't say, it does say a CSS, okay? No, there's a space there. There's a space there. A CSS framework, like any of them, a CSS framework is required for me. Even if you're the kind of person who's like, well, I could just make my own frame. Good, great, you're right. That's still a framework, isn't it? Isn't it? The idea that you are going to fire up a new project, and again, I really highly, I go into detail, okay? I'm using the example of a simple button, okay? Just going through the example of a simple button. This is a very philosophical and like highly informative article that has literally nothing to do with automatic CSS, right? You should absolutely go read it. Because the idea that anybody would fire up a development environment to start a new project and have no semblance of a CSS framework, like that you're gonna do everything by hand in CSS from scratch on every new, is insane. No, that's why I said, like, it's required. It's required because nobody would work like that. Nobody would work like that. It's just dumb. It's really dumb. It's a dumb way to work, period, point blank. So when you fire up Etch, let's say you bought Etch, you don't use a CSS framework, you don't know what a CSS framework, you're gonna be like, this is very difficult to use. Yes, because web design is very difficult without a framework. Congratulations. You are experiencing a known fact of life, right? That's why frameworks are so valuable and so helpful, right? Because if you watch people work without a framework, what they always do is they do stuff like this. They do, I'll just show you. They add this, they come in and they put in, a lot of times they don't even put a class, they just name their classes dumb things, right? Let's say my heading, right? And they do things like this. 2M, font size 2M, or 3M. They come up with some ridiculous number. This is being overwritten, right? But then that's not responsive, okay? So then they got to do some breakpoint stuff. So, okay, this break, and now they're using breakpoints, which you probably shouldn't even be doing in this case. And what about clamp functions? I'm going to make my clamp function by what? By hand? How do these numbers relate to this other heading that I'm putting in here? Like, shouldn't they be related in some form or fashion? Maybe perhaps using a math scale? And then what if I want to change that scale? What if I want to make adjustments to all of my headings at once? And you just go down the list of what if, and you start to realize that there is no reality where you do this anymore. There is just no reality where you do this anymore. You use a framework, whether it's ACSS or you create one yourself or whatever, but you are using a framework if you have any semblance of knowing what you're doing. It does not make sense to do it any other way. So no, I won't. I will not fire up Etch and do tutorials where there is no framework layer, because I would want to jump off a bridge face first. It is a horrific way to work. And it's not scalable, and it's not maintainable. It's insanely inefficient. And why would you demo the absolute worst way to do something? That just will never happen. I'm not going to demo the absolute worst way to do something. Hopefully that wasn't unclear.
All right. So, question about the risk of the license being taken over. Like, if I install Etch on a client's website, is there any risk of the license being taken over? I think the short answer is yes, because the license key it's like when you go to the backend page where you put the license, it is scrambled in there, so you only see the asterisks, but it is unencrypted in the database. Now, there is a technical reason for that being unencrypted. We have to send it unencrypted to the license management system. They don't support some kind of encryption. So we can save it encrypted, but then we have to decrypt it before we send it. The code that decrypts that stuff is visible because it's PHP code. Everybody can see it. So essentially, storing it encrypted wouldn't make it more safe than storing unencrypted, because the unencryption process is just transparent. So essentially, if your client or whoever, freelancer that you bring in, has access to the database, they can get your license. We could look into encrypting it, but I don't think it will add any reasonable amount of security to it, which is why we haven't done it yet. If you have, like, I have been pondering and experimenting with the possibility of using some kind of private and public encryption, so asymmetric encryption, to do that, but I haven't quite figured out a way to do it. If you know a better way, I'm all ears. Anything that can make this more secure, we're absolutely open to it. But as far as I know, this is also very common with other products. They may obfuscate the license on the front end, but they don't encrypt it in the server on the database.
Yep. Okay, I forgot to search through #demo to see if there was any interesting demo requests, because we're going to get out of here in about 15 minutes.
The only one that I remember is that transparent header.
Okay, I'd like to see how you might. Lots of people ask about headers. Okay. All right. We can go for a header. Let's see. I'll go to the index template, drop a section in, see where we're at. I think we already have a main container. We already have a slot content. Okay. We'll make this a header. I don't know what other classes. I think I deleted all the classes on here. Okay. So we shouldn't have anything conflicting, hopefully. So I'll just use generic classes. Header, inner, and then we'll throw in maybe an SVG, and we'll just make it an Etch header. Call that logo. So inner logo, we could throw in, I'm not going to do a whole nav situation right now. That's a whole situation in itself. So we'll go right click, create BIM classes. This logo, we'll say maybe inline size 80. Oh, that's definitely too big. 30, 40, something like that. Does the two rem function here work? I think it does, right? It works anywhere, doesn't it? 40, that's super handy. Okay. On the header itself, okay, we want to go padding block. Did you see my sidebar disappear because I tried to save my work? That's one reason I'm getting rid of Dia. Like probably after this live stream, that shortcut that they implemented kills me, absolutely kills me. Space S, right? And this is again an idea of working with a framework. So one of the most important things on a website, and actually if you analyze a lot of block editor sites, you'll see this error all the time. There will be random sections where the gutter is inline padding in sections, and the block editor has no sections by default. So if you look at code that's a block editor website, they rarely have section elements anyway. But then what you'll see is the gutter is either non-existent or just different in certain sections. And so on mobile, things will be touching the edge of the screen, or they'll just be different distances from the edge of the screen because there is no consistency. They use a little slider. They literally rely on the user just grabbing a little slider and choosing one of the notches in the slider for the inline padding of the entire website. And to do that group by group by group by group by group manually, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. So I have a responsive gutter. Like it's automatically responsive. This is what it looks like on desktop. And as you go down on mobile, notice it's not there, right? Because I haven't put it in, because if this was a section element, it would have it by default, okay? Notice that it doesn't, not only does it not touch the edge of the screen, look how it shrinks and the thing gets closer to the edge of the screen the smaller the device gets, but never actually arrives at the edge. And that's just defined in automatic CSS. You go to spacing, you go to section spacing, and you have your desktop gutter value, your mobile gutter value, and it's put into a clamp function, so it automatically is just fluidly responsive. Now, I don't need to know what these values are. I don't care about these values at all when I'm doing something like this, where I create a header. Okay, I lose my default section padding, right? I put in the block padding of space S. That could be anything that I wanted to. If I want to use a section space value, I can, but that's too much for a header. So I'm just using normal spacing. I need my gutter now. How do I get my gutter back? It's as easy as going, hey, I need padding inline that's equal to my gutter. And now I have that exact same gutter. It's going to match every other section. And I don't care that it was 80 or 16 or what the clamp function look. I don't care. I just know I want my gutter. I ask for my gutter. I get my gutter. That's it. And I move on with my life. And this happens all throughout an entire project build. There's no thinking anymore. You're just dropping tokens in wherever you need them, and they just do all the work behind the scenes, and you can tweak them later. It's insanely flexible, right? That's a perfect example right there. Okay, so next thing I want to do is we're going to need other content on this page. So let's just do, let me go to, where's our layouts? Let's paste a bunch of hero sections in here. Or at least one. We'll paste one hero section in, because if you're going to do an overlay header, you obviously need to see some things that it's going to overlay on. So we'll do that, and we'll see. See, here's what I mean by all the things using fallbacks, right? So that this is pretty agnostic. Let's do BG dark on here, okay? Just something where we can see. And this is in the index template right now. I'm just gonna put this in here so that they match up. There's no gap between them. Because it's an index template, obviously we don't want static content in there. You would want to definitely delete this when you're done, but it is helpful to be able to have that there while you work on your header. All right, so we're gonna go position of fixed, and we're gonna go top of 0 and left of 0. A lot of people ask about logical properties. You can start out doing top and left, and then you can just translate them later. This is inset block start. And then left and right is the inline axis, right? So you're gonna go inset inline start. This is basically just start in the top left corner. Thank you, zoom out. So you notice already that without those 3 lines right there, so you either have a fixed header at the top that pushes everything down, or with these 3 lines of CSS, you have a header that's literally sitting on top of the content, right? And this does create a problem. If you're going to do overlay headers, it creates a problem where this takes up space in your first section. So the normal section padding that I had is no longer sufficient, right? It's no longer sufficient. And this is going to stick by default as I move down the page, right? Now, this is a hard problem to solve, it turns out. This taking up space. See how this is 63 pixels right here? Okay, we're gonna save. I'm gonna go in here. I'm gonna go to layouts, and I'm gonna go to header, and I'm gonna put in that 63 pixels, right? And you can offset content automatically. All right, we're gonna hit save. And look at this. My padding issue that was just created by my header is now fixed everywhere on my site. You could spend lots and lots of time trying to figure that out, or put some class to try to manually fix it on every hero you built. Absolute nightmares I've seen people implement. Automatic CSS, one fix, you're done, move on with your life, right? No reason to spend like chunks and chunks and chunks of time trying to solve these problems. They're already identified, they're already solved for you. Okay, I'm gonna put a background on here. If you put a background of black or whatever color, let's do white, actually. Let's do white. We're gonna make it a transparency in a minute. It's gonna, well, why don't we just do that right now? We'll just do background color mix, and we'll say in sRGB. There's a lot of ways to do transparencies, by the way. So if you watch me do a transparency like this, and you don't like to do this route of a transparency, that's totally fine. This is just how I often do transparencies. All right, so we're gonna do white, and then you just determine how much white do I wanna mix in to the transparency. So that's 20%, 30%, 20%, okay? And then what I need is, what is it? It's a backdrop filter, blur, 5 pixels, so now it's blurry, okay? So you see, like it's just a couple lines of CSS, and now you have an overlay header with a color, and it looks like glass when you go up and down the page. It's not super difficult, right? Did that answer your question? Was that what you were trying to see? Okay. Let me go back to the chat. I wish I could see the hashtag searches while I'm also looking at the chat, but alas, can't do it.
There's still a lot of discussion about the licensing system.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the problem is that like to make your licensing work, you have to pick a licensing system. So essentially, a third-party software that grants you the ability to create licenses and check them, check the activations, etc., etc. Once you pick one, you have to work with the limits and the boundaries of that software. So there's been a lot of suggestions about like child licenses and stuff like that, but our licensing system doesn't support that. So unless we switch licensing system, which is not impossible, but it's a huge task, we may not be able to support certain features.
I think is it Manny? Is that your name? I think your name's Manny. He said, I think the colors is what he's talking about, bringing oxygen vibes. Well, we don't want to do that, Manny. Let's go ahead and see. Isn't this nice and neat? ACSS, you can just change your base color here that I was using, and everything updates. I think SureCard solved the issue with the license. Okay, that's good. All right, let's do a final call for demos and Q&A, and then we'll jump out of here. I'm going to go back to how to change the color of an SVG logo and switching from a dark background to a light one in a sticky header. It depends on how you are changing. There's a lot of ways to change the color of a sticky header. It depends on how you're doing that. And so the methodology that you use is going to determine the methodology you use on the SVG itself. But with SVGs, in order to control their color, like you see here, let's see if I can color red this. Okay, I can out of the box. It depends on how the SVG is formatted. Sometimes they have inline styles, and we have this feature over here called strip color attributes. And you can click that, and if your logo or your SVG is not changing when you use the color property, you might want to try clicking the strip color attributes. Some will work out of the box without it, but some won't. Once you hit strip color attributes, you should be able to then color this anything that you want with the color property. So, you know, again, it's the methodology you're using to change the colors in the first place based on whatever it happens to be, dark mode, light mode, contrast, yada, yada, yada. That's going to determine what you're going to do or how you're going to approach the logo changing as well. Let's see. I would like to see how you might let the client choose a color for an element in a component, but that be dynamic from the palette. So it's fairly simple. Let me get out of, I keep forgetting we're in an actual like template here. So let me get out of this. We can leave the header there, but we don't want any hero stuff in here. Let's go back quickly to one of the pages, sample page. I guess we'll get it done. Okay, we'll let this one be the last one and then we will go. But this is, and then you can think about how this carries through to Gutenberg as an example, because Gutenberg, you're not going to want your client willy-nilly just like choosing colors with a color, like a color picker or anything like that. You're going to want to program in like themes for things. And so if it's a component, like I'll probably use our card component that we created a little bit ago. Our simple little card here, which I pretty much broke by doing all of the element stuff in here. Let's get rid of that. Let's just put a normal heading in. Okay, let's put that up there. Okay, card heading. And then this will just pop in some lorem real quick. So lorem 20. Okay, save and simple card. Okay, this is where, see, display flex direction. Imagine those that mini GUI, right? Doing this kind of stuff for you. Okay, there's that. And then we're going to put in some padding. Space M, background of BG. How about we just do that? So anytime you're going to set up color manipulation from outside the thing, you're probably going to want to use what we call a locally scoped variable. This is a variable that has no current value. Now you can set a fallback for this variable by putting a comma and then doing whatever you want, okay? See, it's gonna be red now, right? You can even fall back to another variable like this, all right? So this would be like a default out of the box. It's gonna be like this. But then you're gonna say, okay, I wanna give my client some options. So I'm gonna make a select box. A select box typically is pretty good anytime you wanna give somebody a bunch of options that are all like predetermined options. So you might wanna say like, it depends on how far you wanna go with this. Do you wanna do background color? Or do you really wanna do, because what you probably want is combinations of things, like combos of background and foreground options that are safe for them to choose from. And you might call that like style, but I'm gonna give you the very basic example here. We're just gonna let them choose the background's color, okay? So what are our options going to be? Notice it gives you, grade in here, right? It's showing you the syntax of you can define a label and then separately you can do a value, or you can just do a value and the value and the label will be one in the same. In the future, you'll be able to determine whether you're outputting the label or the value in certain places, but right now it's just the value is what is output, okay? So let's say that we want to have black as an option, okay? But we wanna use, and we'll do a pop quiz here, the value of var black for that instead of black, because black is an actual value for CSS color. And I've asked this question, I've done this pop quiz many, many, many times before, but we'll do it over and over again because this is not the same thing, okay? If people think that var black and black are the same thing, that is not the case. So we'll do a pop quiz real quick. If you could tell me why, you won't win anything. It's okay. Other than glory, I will put your answer up on the screen, okay? You can win glory here. But why is this, what advantage does this bring over, and I won't give you any other tips, but what advantage does this bring over the other color? Okay, let's do white and then var white as the option. And let's do BG dark. We'll just say dark, right? BG dark, okay, will be the output. Let's go to the chat real quick and see if we have any answers from our friends. There you go. Let's see. Did anybody get it first? Yeah. Okay. It looks like Jason got it first. He said light dark mode switch. Doesn't even really have to be a switch, but yeah, these variables are compatible with dark mode, and the raw value of black or white is not dark mode, light mode compatible. So that is the one singular advantage. That's probably a question I get asked all the time. So people see me write var black. They're like, why aren't you just using 000 or write the word black? That's dumb that you're using a token. It's not dumb. It's not dumb. It actually does have value over just using a raw value. Okay, so what we need to do is take this background selection right here, and let's just see what this does. I'm just gonna save this in our current state and exit the component. So when I'm using the component, now the user, which this passes into Gutenberg, right? I don't know what version I'm on here or what our Gutenberg authoring is looking like on this particular version. So you don't have the dropdown on this particular version, but you would have that prop passing through into Gutenberg. So the person using this in Gutenberg would essentially see this selection, and they would be able to choose white or dark or what have you, right? So what I need to do is I need to somehow inject that selection into this component. Well, I use this token of BG. So what I would probably want to do is I would want to put an inline style where I give BG, that token, a value. And probably it would be best working if I would give it this value right here. And this is props.background, okay? And so we can put that in, and now you can see it does inherit the black as the default, at least it appears to be the case. One thing that we should do first is just go check. Yes, it does. Now, this is why you don't want to just give people the option of changing the background, because it doesn't help them very much. You would want to create some semblance of a style where it's like, hey, if they choose base, it's going to do this to the background and foreground. If they choose white, it's going to do this to the background and foreground, and so on and so forth. All right, but I'm going to choose, I won't do the default. I'll do black. I won't like the BG dark that was the default previously, because I want to show you on the front end what this does. So if we're looking at the DOM, right? So you can see it's injecting an inline style, giving BG the value of black, which was the selection of that prop. And that's literally all it's doing, okay? Simple, right? This would pass through to Gutenberg, give them the same exact flexibility in Gutenberg, all tightly controlled by you, so that Bev isn't out here throwing in your card component that you spent an hour on and then making it hot pink with inaccessible light pink text, because Bev loves pink, okay? You don't want to give that kind of control to clients. You want to give them workable solutions to say, hey, what kind of card do you want here? Here's the working options. And it's all tightly controlled by you. And she can't break it. She can't break it. All right. I think everybody got that, right? Yeah, poor Bev. I mean, she gets thrown under the bus every stream.
She'll sue us sometime.
If she was real. Yeah, see? My whole life is about managing Bev. Yes, this is how you manage Bev right here. Bev, here's your presets that you can choose from. Notice I call them presets. Like, some builders give you guys presets. I've always said, man, that's what an insult that they're giving you preset. They don't give you classes, they give you presets. What are you, Fisher Price? This is like you're a little kid. They gotta give the kid gloves to you. I don't know, man. We give our customers real tools, right? You give your client, Bev, the presets. That's who gets the presets. Bev gets the presets. Wow, that is. We won't let your wife know that. Hopefully she's not watching this stream at the same time. Okay, we're gonna get out of here. We're gonna put this one in the books. We do this every single month. We meet, we take a look at the new features, we do demos, we answer questions. We'll see you guys back in the community, and then November, we'll be back with some more exciting stuff. That is it for this one. Peace.
Bye, everyone.